We have to get a lot of votes. We can't be cutting. We need to get a lot of support, and we have a lot of support. We had to get it through the House. We will be negotiating that bill, and I'm not happy about certain aspects of it, but I'm thrilled by other aspects of it.
President Trump says he's negotiating and will be negotiating specific aspects of the big, beautiful bill as the GOP senators and Elon Musk push back on the current state of the bill. I pressed Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson on the bill yesterday, and he told me he needs to see more debt reduction. Watch. Can you get it done by the end of July?
We can, yes. Before July 4th, if we break this into two parts. Well,
so you don't want the tax cuts in part one?
Not right now, no. Listen, $22 trillion additional deficit. This is not the time to cut taxes that don't promote economic growth.
So you want to do the tax extensions in part two, is what you're saying?
No, part one, I want to do that right away. Part two would be Trump's tax proposals. Let's try and simplify and rationalize the tax code. Let's do the work to go line by line.
No tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. That's part two.
Do that later. We'll debate that later.
Joining me now with his view is North Dakota Senator Kevin Cramer. Senator, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. We've been talking about Senator Johnson's sentiment as well as Rick Scott, who had a similar sentiment. How do you see things?
I actually think, Maria, that President Trump had the perfect sentiment. There's some things he's not thrilled by, and there's other things that he is thrilled by, and that's how you make sausage in Washington, D.C. I have a lot of sympathy for the position that Senator Scott and Senator Johnson are talking about, and I think that's the challenge of the bigness of the bill. You remember the Senate early on already passed a budget resolution that included extending the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act cuts as well as funding our military and border security. That bill would be law today had we just done that piece of it. The challenge, and I think it's an unknown, is would we have been able to do the other things had we not had a part of this big, beautiful bill? We will never know that if we can just pass the big, beautiful bill. I'm optimistic, as Ron is, that we can get it done, and we can get it done by the 4th of July. But the greatest whip in the history of Congress is Donald Trump, so he's going to have to engage on a pretty...
When you say you're optimistic that you can get it done, do you mean you can get it done in two parts, or you can get it done in this one bill? Because, when you take a look at the CBO projections, you've got $22 trillion, a 10-year deficit. That's $2.2 trillion a year. You got the total debt going from $37 trillion currently where it is to $59 trillion by 2035, Senator.
I think one thing that I think gets understated almost all the time, and that is the opportunity of economic growth and what that will do to our budget and to reduce some deficits. That doesn't get talked about enough. It never gets scored properly, as we know. Secondly, we're not done. Just because we passed the big, beautiful bill doesn't mean that we're done legislating. We still have two more opportunities in this Congress for budget reconciliation if necessary, and we have the regular process of appropriating. And with John Thune at the helm, and he has lived up to every promise he made, if we elected him majority leader, we're going to go to regular order on the appropriations process. We can go line by line through things. So I don't think this bill is the last bill, obviously, in Congress. So, I think we can get the big, beautiful bill done in some form by the 4th of July, something that the House can pass. We have to be cognizant of just the narrow margins of both chambers. But again, if Donald Trump is engaged with members and he helps negotiate this, it's not just going to be about this bill. It's going to be about what's the next bill look like, and what's the next bill look like, and what's the opportunity to find real spending cuts at the same time as we reform some of the programs that are really the drivers of our debt. Maria, something again that a lot of people don't like to talk about, and then look at economic growth opportunities.
What are your thoughts about the U.S. Court of International Trade ruling against President Trump's authority on tariffs, saying that he overstepped, that the International Emergency Economic Powers Act is not doable here? Of course, the White House filed an appeal saying it is not for the unelected judges to decide how to properly address a national emergency. President President Trump pledged to put America first, and the administration is committed to using every lever of executive power to address this crisis and restore American greatness. But, Senator, you met with Canadian officials in Ottawa as Prime Minister Mark Carney is urging a new trade deal with the United States. But, you know, you're a sitting senator, and what the court and the judges are saying is that this should lie with you and your colleagues in Congress. What is your take on it?
Yeah, so it was an interesting read, frankly, this order, and remembering that these are three different judges who voted unanimously, one appointed by Obama, one by Reagan, and then one by Trump, of course. But we also have to remember that no president in history has been overturned more often with his executive overreach than Joe Biden was. So what we're seeing is, I think the court's trying to reestablish the co-equal branches of government and the powers of each of them. I think everybody's right, including Donald Trump, on this one. But the use of emergency powers is something that many presidents have stretched, as far as they can. And I don't think anybody can deny that Donald Trump has tried to stretch or maybe just explore the edges of executive power. And every now and then he's getting some pushback. But I also think, to your point about my trip to Ottawa, foreign leaders know Donald Trump's a serious player. He's going to use every tool that he has available to him. And if this one is altered in some way, then he'll use other tools. The bottom line is he's looking out for America first. And the good news is we're getting to some deals. And I'm anxious to see more of them get done.
It sounds like, from your standpoint, as a senator, you believe that the actual law around tariffs stands with Congress.
Which screams, okay, Congress, then let's get to work on some tariff legislation if that's what's necessary. But I also think that Donald Trump has other tools in his tool chest, not the least of which is 20% of the consumption in the world comes from the United States of America. We're the largest economy by far. Right. He knows how to leverage all of that. In the meantime, appeal this decision and see what the federal courts say.
Let me get your take on the border, because patrol agents expected to receive millions of dollars in that big, beautiful bill, all to continue the pursuit of protecting the homeland. This action particularly important yesterday when an illegal migrant in Wisconsin was placed in ICE custody after a threat to kill President Trump. He allegedly gave a handwritten note to ICE agents claiming that the president is, quote, messing with him and that he'll get, quote, what's coming to him. Congressman, your reaction?
Well, it's outrageous, and it's a great illustration of why we need to secure our border and why Donald Trump has put that at the top of his list of things to get done. It's what he ran on. It's what he's already doing through all of his executive actions. We now need to back that up with the resources to not only get this guy deported and several others like him and people that have been a threat all over this country, but then to put in place the institutional assets to make sure that future presidents can do the same and are required to do the same.
Senator, it's great to have you this morning. Always a pleasure to see you. Thank you, sir.
Always mine. Thank you, Maria.
All right. Senator Kevin Cramer. A quick break, and then